And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of the hit MGM Plus Epics ABC Signature. I'm trying to think about everybody who has something to do with this shit.
Epics is done. Rest in
they
peace.
started it. They started it. They started the hit show Godfather of Harlem. We're here to talk about episode 9. This episode is called We Are All Kings. So it's your boy Lucas Najir. What's going on tonight, sir?
What's up, good sir? How you doing today?
Hey man, all about getting ready for the return that we have been waiting for all season of, as he stepped out of prison like Vince McMahon, or let's like Shane McMahon, like they might as well just play the money song as he stepped out of prison here.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to start off the episode with Joe meeting with the families to discuss discuss taking over for Chen and moving him completely out the way. What'd you think about? I know it's been hinted towards, especially the last couple of episodes, that this was going to be a move that Joe was going to make. But what do you think about opening the episode this way and then going immediately to Chen being released from prison?
Yeah, it sets up the conflict for the episode. But this is in true Joe fashion. The moves he were making and whether we were able to understand that from a viewer standpoint or even as a historian, he made it very clear that he's doing things that none of these families have ever done. He's bringing in the margin of money that he's bringing in, and obviously, we'll talk about a little bit later the connections he's making. He feels like, why am I playing second to anybody? I should be legitimately a member at this table here, a member of the families. Not just the substitution for Chen. And then with him having Tommy in his back pocket, I think it's just the right move at the right time here. He doesn't have to look over his shoulders. Stella is also sort of looking over his back for him as well, too, helping him from a business standpoint. This was in any other business, this is the right thing to do, to come to your supervisors or your other colleague and say, no, I deserve to be in the starting five here. Forget the 6-man shit. Like I make it happen. And it never, and with everything that Joe does, feels like a level of intimidation, but not this. This felt like the smart thing that he needed to do. It's just Joe. So now you start to think, well, if we're opening up the episode with this, how is this going to play out this episode? Which is why the second scene is this mind blowing, because you're just like, oh well, Joe's on his way to the top. Can't be stopped now. Oh, can he? And we'll talk about that in a second. So it was dope.
I mean, it plays out to another a point that we tend to forget about from time to time with this show. The families don't like Chen at all.
Yeah,
they absolutely don't like him. They don't like the point that if it wasn't for the Harlem riots, technically Bumpy would be running everything because of a deal Chen made with Bumpy that they were all uncomfortable with to begin with. So I think it plays into that dynamic that, hey, Joe was here offering them money, offering them new deals, but it's minus the Negro, who they all don't like being involved in their business, unlike Chen, who had absolutely no issue with Bubby being in their business. So if they could make a deal with Joe and get rid of Chen just for that reason, and just because Chen was a hothead when he came in and none of them liked in the first place, I think it was a win-win for them. The unexpected thing was Chen getting out of prison was not something that they saw happening. And I think that's what starts to throw a monkey wrench in their plans, as we're going to talk about down the road in this episode. Mm-hmm. But next up, we get real archive footage of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
As it blends into a scene with Malcolm X. I mean, it's not
not the best transition.
Thank you. Yeah. I was trying to find a nice way to say it, because it's rarely do you ever find something on this show that you question, but the transition just didn't seem to be good as you transition from the archive footage to him giving this speech. But what's important about this speech is him meeting with some colleagues of Martin Luther King and him preaching his speech there, understanding that he clearly shows the separation of them two in the speech, but him also now willing to reach out and say, hey, technically we're fighting the same battle here. Maybe we do need to meet. Maybe it would be nice for us to meet, to align ourselves together here. What do you think about, with everything we know about the UN that happened with Che, with with the multiple attempts on Malcolm's life up until this episode, that it's here where he reaches out to constituents that normally would only follow Martin's beliefs, and he's preaching his message to them while also saying that, technically we are the same. We just have different ways of going about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I always forget if we had any reference. We definitely haven't seen Martin Luther King, but I always forget if they've ever referenced him. But Andrew Young, is one of the folks close to Martin Luther King, especially in Everything in Selma. So this is when you really start hitting these historical tidbits. But what's interesting to me, because while there's numerous documentation upon the interactions between King and Malcolm X, but what's interesting to me is that Malcolm X has very much made peace that he's going to die. He's going to die. And I think with that peace is allowing him to exercise sort of just a level of a mindset of just going and do things he normally wouldn't do, or just doing things that he may have waited to do. I think with this piece of knowing he's got to die, with him also knowing how much time he potentially may not have left.
Yeah.
This conversation about referencing Martin Luther King is like, hey, we do have different philosophies. And I mean, he absolutely slandered him. He definitely said,
in a way. Yeah.
He basically said, like, those nonviolent folks, in terms of the believers of Martin Luther King, that's what he was getting at with here. But he also made it very clear that, like, that's not my strategy. I now have been in every hostile situation ever. I got the alphabet boys after me. I got the Muslims after me. I can't go nowhere. I'm considered the most dangerous man in the world. So at this point now, what can I lose here? And I think what we're seeing from the last two episodes, and who knows how much time historically is between these events, I think I think Malcolm X is in the mindset of leaving legacy, knowing that, like, my time is short. I done had a plan. I may not be able to fully execute my plan, but if I'm able to leave my legacy in the right hands, I will be okay. And I know he understands that Martin Luther King is fighting the same battle. He's fighting just in a different strategy. I think there's a level of respect for him. And I think by him saying that, like, when he's talked about the house Negroes and the field Negroes and whatnot, he said, well, if the house is burning, I think he would be standing next to me. I think that was the mindset of saying, like, at the end of the day, no matter what we go through, we're both trying to fight the same fight, and we would stand next to each other no matter what it is. And I think, it was completely shady that he shaded him in his speech, but I think that was the normal mindset of him. But understanding that, like, you really are about to die, sir. You kind of got to make peace with a lot of these things. Can't be going to the grave with some of these things. And I think that's kind of where we see the switch kind of turn, where he's just kind of like, I think it would be better if I let him know that, like, I'm open to work with him. I doubt it ever happens, but I am open to work with him. But if not, I hope he kind of can find a level of, like, solidarity to know that, like, while we didn't agree on the same strategy in doing so, we both wanted the same thing. And obviously, the other thing that's interesting about this is that while he is understanding that he's going to die, he also doesn't understand that Martin Luther King's also got the same bullseye on his head, which is interesting. And everybody who's around him too. I mean, Bumpy is also in it too. So, anybody he's around is going to be affected by this. But these scenes are open to a vast amount of interpretation here. Could you say that Malcolm X put Martin Luther King in danger because anybody that was in route of Martin Luther King was in danger? Could you look at it that way? Or because Malcolm X was kind of oblivious that they were after him. I mean, he knew, like, the CIA outside the country, but he's like, at home, he thought it was okay. He thought he was gonna make the speech and it was gonna be okay. Now he realizes, like, it's not okay. He realizes that everywhere he looks, they're after him. But I just wonder if he ever took a moment to understand that, like, also Martin Luther King or anybody who's trying to fight the good fight here, because a lot of this different mindsets and philosophies here could have easily just been nipped in the bud, and they could have been working together to not only get the word out, but to protect one another. But again, Malcolm X made peace knowing that he was going to die, and I think he's just trying to leave his legacy by any means necessary.
And what's important about this is, one, for people that don't know, and I'm confused how people would not know, just how important part of history this moment is. When Malcolm is in Selma, this is when Martin Luther King's in jail in Selma. This is right after Martin Luther King won the Nobel Peace Prize, and they arrested him in Selma.
No, I forgot all about that. He was in jail.
Yeah. All of this happening. This is when one of the most important letters that has ever come out from Dr. King was written when he was in that jail cell then. And this is such a pivotal moment for the civil rights movement when this happens. That's why it's such a big thing to have Malcolm down there at that time. Yeah. Because he's down at the time where Martin's still in jail, but he's still kind of oblivious to anything else going around him. Yeah. The point that Andrew had to come and tell him, like, you know, Martin's still, and he said, wow, he's still locked up?
Yeah.
The nation knew that Martin Luther King was still locked up. And Malcolm didn't, because he's so focused on what his goal is and understanding his own morality. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
mortality.
That's mortality.
Yes, mortality. Understand his own mortality, that he is just consumed by it. He's consumed by thinking, I have to get my message out because I don't know how much longer I have to live. But he's also about correcting any misconceptions about his message. By just saying that little part at the end when he said, if the house is burning down, I believe Martin will be standing right next to me, is basically saying, hey, don't try to separate us. Or as the great philosopher Sean J.C. Carter once said, don't red hat me, when he was talking about him and Kanye West and trying to separate and wedge that gap in between them. It was the same thing technically. Well, not the same thing, but close to the same thing for young people out there as Malcolm and Martin.
Split the grades.
Exactly. And that was the key part there of this. Even when he's talking to the kids and he's like, hey, I hope my message isn't too strong for you. I hope you got the point of what I'm trying to say here. Because I know the person who you normally would get a message from is not this hostile. That's again about him understanding that, as you put it, his legacy is important. Leaving that impact is even more important because his message is more important than his life. That's been the ongoing theme of Malcolm so far in this season. But next up, we have Elise, Bumpy, and Mammy. Again, guess what they're talking about? Malcolm. Because everybody in this episode is talking about Malcolm. Everybody humanly possible. But again, if anybody pays attention to the time frame, the month and the year, it's a reason that they're talking about Malcolm, because technically we are getting to the end of Malcolm X's life here. But here, about them talking about Malcolm and about Bumpy even bringing up, as we've alluded to, I don't know if there's much more to talk about except for they acknowledging that this is also a threat. When Mammy says, yes, I heard about his speech in Selma, and Bumpy saying, well, it looks like he's aligning himself with Martin, which is going to make him an even bigger target if he does that here. I mean, again, not much else to talk about here, just Bumpy asking Elise to set up a meeting so he can actually talk to Malcolm, knowing that after their last encounter, Malcolm was through with him, but it had also come out by this point that Bumpy was right, that someone did try to kill Shay at the UN, which, as we see later on, it helps soften Malcolm a little bit. But, I mean, anything else you want to talk about there? To me, it's not. We talked about it a lot of last time. Next up is the celebration for Chen on his way out, his way home. And the first person he asks to see is Stella. Yep. What did you think about his reaction when his lawyer said Stella doesn't matter at this moment?
I was like, oh, that dude trying to get himself killed. And like, I get him though, because he's basically trying to say, bro, you just got out by a technicality. Like, this is a win amongst win. Take this moment and bask in it. And he's like, no, fuck that. Where's my daughter? The lawyer wasn't wrong. I mean, it's like, hey, you done been through so much. Take a moment to just celebrate this win. Don't get back to work and whatever bit of stress and triggers you got. But like, he also forgot he was talking to Chen, because at one point his lawyer was the most valuable person to him, and then I'm sure his lawyer was feeling like, yeah, he needs me. His lawyer quickly forgot that he's free too. He no longer needs you. Watch yourself, there.
Like my brother, you are expendable at this point. And again, you're talking about his daughter. Out of all people, you should understand, after you just hinted towards something happening with Joe and his daughter, and he wanted Joe murdered. That should tell you right there. Any bad talk towards Stella, granted, all well-deserved, completely well-deserved for the Empress of Harlem. Whenever you talk bad about Stella, we fully understand it. But with Chen here, That's not allowed at all here. And I think that it's a beautiful setup for what we get later on in this episode as we finally get for people that did not fully understand the love that he has for his daughter, because it didn't always show in the first 2 seasons. But this episode poignantly shows everything humanly possible. But the next 2 scenes up, again, we kind of hinted towards it already. And this is one, it's Malcolm arriving home from Salem. He visits Betty, hands her flowers, and then we see Clyde drop what it looks like a Molotov cocktail at his house. I'm not 100% sure what it was. It looks like that, though.
Yeah.
But also it leads to Malcolm and Bumpy talking, and this is where they make amends for everything that happened between them, as Malcolm fully realizes that technically Bumpy was there only to save your life. What do you think about this overall setup as we see what happens with Clyde at Malcolm's house, and then the conversation between Malcolm and Bumpy?
Yeah, so typically when you think about selfish, it's really used as like a negative terms, and Malcolm has been selfish because he's been so focused on his objectives and the importance behind his objectives, which are selfish, shall we say. I mean, it depends. It's up for interpretation,
But
because
it's a selfish way he's going about it.
exactly,
Yeah.
because like, him doing the speech was absolutely wanting to do the speech in the UN was completely selfish, because it was putting his life into danger, and he didn't care, and he didn't realize everybody around him was trying to protect him, and he was like, listen, I don't like none of you all now because you were trying to protect me, and I need to go make that seat. It's selfish in a reckless way. I say all this to say that because the moment that he realized that now what he's doing has put his wife and his 2 kids in danger, it clicked in his head like, damn, okay, yeah, he was right. So it sucks that a lot of folks have to have that realization about some of the things that they're doing wrong in life in order for it to really hit home for them to want to change their ways. And that's what happened here. And he had to go back and tell Bumpy, which they're boys. So like, these things happen. People make up with their boys all the time. You go through things, you just make up and say, hey man, it's nothing. And I think that was just one thing. So this was a very important, but yet pivotal moment in their friendship to really show that camaraderie amongst the 2 of them, but showing that like, it's all love. Just like you can say Bumpy, he got told off last episode, and the whole first part of this episode, he like, man, I gotta protect my boy, even though he didn't say he wanted me to protect him no more. And Malcolm, on the other hand, was just like, damn, he was trying to protect me. Like I should have, done better. So these moments right here, while they're not as dire as the situation for Malcolm, but everybody has these realizations in life where somebody had you in best interest, and then it hits you right in the head. He's like, damn, I should have listened, or I should have did what they said. You know what it is. So it was just a cool moment.
Hey, it's all well and dandy to be ready to die, up until you realize that technically the people you love have to also be ready to die. Because if you're ready to sacrifice it all, you're not only just putting your life at risk, you're putting everyone's life at risk with all your actions. And
it's like suicide. It's selfish because you think this is the easy way out. And granted, I don't want to have a conversation about mental health on this right now, but the reason why people say it's selfish is because, it's not in the lack of like what you're going through, and maybe this is the right solution, or maybe it's not telling nobody what to do here. But the reason why people say they label it selfish is because you remove yourself from this life, but forget about all the other people that it affects. Your kids, your partner, your parents, and whatnot, and I think that's like what Malcolm again has quickly forgot. Malcolm's in that house alone, and that drunk on fire.
I think that's it. Yeah,
he would have just been okay. His family was in there, his daughters kids who just returned, by the way. Don't forget they were sent away for a while, but they're back, and his wife, and he's just like, dang, like, if I die, I leave them. Like the visual representation of like what you leave behind is right here. But at the same time, too, you also get that very much of that warning of like, what's after me is also affecting them. And I think like, Bumpy being there, and even Omar can even say as well too, letting him know like, come on, man. You gotta open your eyes a little bit bigger here. Take off the blinders. I know you got a mission, but take off the blinders here. I understand that this affects them as well too.
Yeah, because this whole time he talked about he's ready to die. He understands his path. he literally never brings up his kids
Not at all.
or his wife and what happens if he dies to them.
Yeah,
That
not at
is
all.
as far away from his thought process as humanly possible. At least that's the way it is perceived on the show. But next up, we have Chen reuniting with Stella. And this is why the Empress of Harlem is not always the nicest person in the world here. As she makes it clear to Chen, to me at least, that her loyalty is to Joe. And then she proceeds to tell Chen everything that happened. That Olympia attempted to get her killed, who helped Olympia try to get her killed. Here, when Chen tells her she shouldn't side with Joe because Joe's not going to be around for much longer. And her next immediate thing is to try to not only defend Joe, but to throw Olympia and everyone else under the bus in an attempt to defend Joe. What do you think? I know we talked about Stella a lot this season, a lot about her actions. But what do you think about her actions here with her father, in a way trying to deflect his attention away from Joe?
Oh, it's Stella being Stella. I don't even know. I can't even, honestly, I can't give you even a minute worth of conversation here. This is Stella being Stella. And to that, there's no surprise about anything that happened in the scene at all. Back to business. Back to season 1, Stella and Chen interactions. Oh, if anybody if anybody was even surprised that Joe and Stella like confirmed their affection to one another, where were you at 5 episodes ago?
Yeah,
no surprise.
We were waiting. The moment he offered her the ticket to Paris and she said, "No, I'll stay." You knew then where this was going because it literally made no sense. Now she's a don in his organization for what we see later on in this episode. I am highly confused exactly what the heck is even the mindset of Stella here.
Wait till we get to Jose. Wait till we get to that scene.
Oh, well, let's get to the first scene here with Jose and Wild Bill as they talk about business, as Wild Bill does not understand why Jose is mad at Bumpy. I think none of us understand why Jose is mad at Bumpy after Jose literally crossed Bumpy first and Bumpy did something and now he's mad at Bumpy.
Lack of accountability.
Doing the exact same thing that he did to Bumpy. But here, the most important part is Wild Bill telling him, you and me, we need Bumpy. And we must find this right, but we have to get him in line first. And then even going out the way to say, there's multiple people I can get to kill Malcolm X. What do you think about just that conversation between Wild Bill and Jose? And then what do you think about Wild Bill at the end basically saying like, oh no, I can always find ways to kill Malcolm X. I'm not just dependent on your way or Bumpy at this point.
Yeah. What's important here is something else also. If there was ever a question, why would Wild Bill be so interested in the Bumpy? Because when Wild Bill first meets Bumpy, he's like, oh, I know all about you. But you didn't see him as an asset because he thought he could use him for Malcolm. But he's like, obviously, he was like, oh, I knew you wouldn't turn. I know that's your boy. So, like, it's wasting time. But why else would he be looking into Bumpy? Because everyone's aware of what Bumpy does, the connection he has with the Negro community, the connections he has in New York. And when you're talking about, and what Jose talked about, the importance of what cocaine means to this city, to the operation. Understanding that Bumpy has been, oddly enough, just as valuable to Wild Bill as Jose is to Wild Bill
at this point.
And think about this: if you can get them two on the same page, which is great, and Wild Bill is the puppet master, CIA. Come on now. And have them puppet mastering the two of them and getting what you want, got them playing nice, getting them. It's like taking two whores out for shopping. You like get them nice clothes, make them feel like they're worth something, and whatever, and then
have them dress alike, act alike.
Yeah, and then dispose of them.
Had them twinning out there,
tricking, absolutely tricking. And I think that's what was going on here. And I mean, he said the most important thing. He said, "Hey, my guy." In case you didn't know, Italians know nothing about selling cocaine. We need, but him saying we need Bumpy is a scary statement. It's an absolutely scary statement because if you think about it, everybody else has been dispensable to them.
Why isn't Bumpy? Not only that, Bumpy just started selling cocaine. That's a slap in the face to Jose. That as he walked in there with Jose, he's like, why are you sitting on so much product here? Like, this makes absolutely no sense. He
Yeah.
walked in there on Jose the way Franklin walked in on them boys in Snowfall. Like, wait a minute, we got all this product. Why is it more stuff moving here? And then to basically tell him, like, you technically can't do this without Bumpy. I think that hurt Jose more than anything. But again,
hurt
also
or just further like confused him.
ego,
like, wait,
hurt his ego more than anything.
1,000%, because Jose has been the most. He's been the most valuable asset to them the entire time. So he's like, oh man, somebody coming for my spot.
But I think the key part is Wild Bill sees everything as a scope. Like, he clearly wants Malcolm gone, but he wants Che gone, and he wants Fidel gone. Like, he wants all of them gone. But if you pay attention to it, what's been a lesson so far this season is that Bumpy is single-minded and Jose is single-minded.
Yeah.
And because of their single-mindedness, and Wild Bill technically right now being the only one seeing whatever his bigger picture is, it kind of clouds their judgment. And that's why he's like, no, you two need to work together. Because technically you all are only focused on one thing apiece here. I have a bigger plan in play that I want to lay out. And both of you are messing up my bigger plan. Because technically I want to kill one of the guys that Jose wants to kill, but I also need to kill the guy that Bumpy wants to protect. Like, I need to get rid of all of them. And I probably need to get rid of Jose too. Like, I can't have any of you around. That tends to be the way Wild Bill tends to carry itself here. And it's kind of interesting to see exactly where this goes later on in this episode. But next up is another interlude of We Must Protect Malcolm. Again, this is the running theme in this episode. But here is just Bumpy passing on to Dale and Pettigrew. We must protect Malcolm. And then him meeting with Omar and Elise and basically telling Omar the only reason you're alive is because of Elise. I would have killed you by now because guess what you tried to do?
Kill Malcolm.
Kill Malcolm.
I did. Listen, did you think he was going to say that?
I did not. I did not either. Was over this at this point.
I literally thought he did this because he hurt I'm about to call her Stella. Elise feelings. I literally thought it was his father protecting. He's like, I just, we'll just leave that.
He's like, you can hurt Elise all you want to, but if
what
you hurt Malcolm,
what you ain't gonna do, you ain't gonna hurt Malcolm X.
Look, at this point, I think in this episode is just a running thing here, and we got a lot in this review, but a lot of it is about protecting Malcolm because that's what Bumpy does in this entire episode, is protect Malcolm. But I think here the most important conversation is Omar revealing to Bumpy that he believes he knows who did it. And this goes back to the conversation he had a couple of episodes ago with Clyde and that other mosque about their intentions of attempting to harm Malcolm. Anything else you want to lead to Bumpy's pursuit to save Malcolm?
No, but I mean, like, while the viewers knew, because he already had exposed the plans to Malcolm, it was important because this would have been a plot hole. It's like, wait, how the hell did Bumpy know? But so no, nothing to add here. We knew this Bumpy now enters the party.
Now, next is Jose meeting with the Dawn of Harlem, Stella, and her concierge, Joe, about plans to partner with Joe because he believes that his partnership with Bumpy is over. What did you think about the scene? We could talk about what you think about the scene with Stella later on, but what did you just think about this scene with Jose after what Wild Bill said? Then Jose going to approach Joe about setting up a possible deal to move cocaine.
You, my friend, have made a vast assumption here. He never named who he thought his partnership was going to be over with. He says he feels like his partnership is going to be over. His partnership with Bumpy was already over because he said it. Could he be thinking that his partnership with Wild Bill may be getting ready to be over?
Only reason I would say no is because Jose brought up two important things. He brought up the cocaine, which only he could get from Wild Bill.
Yeah.
And two, he said, and I can get you a deal that you'll never hear before. That deal was the protection of the CIA.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
nobody else for Jose but Wild Bill if it's pertaining to the CIA. So
Right.
the whole time, the whole deal was with Wild Bill. His breaking up is with his deal with Bumpy, because Joe brings that up first. Joe says, "You got to deal with Bumpy." And he said, "Well, maybe I'm looking for a new partner." And then that's when Joe lays down a law to Jose and said, "You basically spit in my face when I offered you 2 deals. And then you come back here, understand the terms will not change." Meaning, even if you bring in a product to me, the terms are still going to be the same of what I'm going to pull in versus what you're going to pull in. And that's when Jose tells him, "I have something else also." That we clearly is foreshadowing, and we'll see it. We'll talk about it later at the end of the episode, exactly what Jose had under his hand to pull in and bring to Joe. But just what do you think about this meeting that he's still letting? We saw Bumpy kinda not let it interfere too much, that Jose technically attempted to kill Malcolm and did everything humanly possible to ruin everything between Bumpy and Malcolm.
Yeah.
But one time Bumpy didn't let him kill Che. And Jose has gone off the rails completely.
Yeah. I just think Jose is just desperate right now because he doesn't feel so protected like he used to. I think he felt like he had what do you call it, an ironclad contract with everybody around him, where he was just untouchable and he can just do what he wants. But now it seems like his relationship with Wild Bill is a little bit shaky. And let's think about the mental of him here now. He doesn't have the deal with Bumpy. They're not cool. He also has not been able to be objective into the things he wanted, nor is that on anybody's forefront. No one cares about the things he wants to do. He's just now just became a worker. And then if you think about Wild Bill and how he was like, "Oh, those are some good workers you got. Oh, we're going to get rid of them." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't think that was the plan." I'm pretty sure there has to be a thought of like, "Oh, Jose, don't quite need you like we used to anymore."
I'm about to say, in the end, he didn't say, "Jose, we need you." He said, "Jose, we need Bumpy." Like, it's a complete slap in Jose's face. He like, "Oh, I can't believe this. I bought the Negro in, and then all of a sudden he's become more important than me."
Yeah,
which is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
But I was interested though at the meeting. When he had looked at Stella and he was like, "Oh, this has sugar in it." He's like, "No," and he's like, and I was like, "What is this awkward pause about sugar? Is there a certain way that they like their coffee or tea?"
Yes. Remember, if you ever see Jose make his, it's always with a cube of sugar. They've shown it a couple times this season. So when he said that, and Joe said, "Oh, she's not your waitress." Like, you gonna take it black, my brother.
Yeah.
like Stella used to take her men. So you gonna have to deal with this coffee just that way. Again, it's go ahead.
Oh, and I was gonna say, and then also do like the fact like, "Oh, is she just gonna stay here?" And they both answered yes. I was dying. I was like, "Oh, so Stella's just in meetings now." I mean, she got to upgrade. So now she feels like she's the boss. And this is just Stella being Stella as always, just doing something she thinks she's doing, don't know what she's up to. Just
hey, I think it all goes back to her conversation with Joe about the IRS when he started taking her more seriously, because even when Joe says there's no money in cocaine, and it takes for Stella to say, "Yes, there is." And Joe said, "How you know?" She said, "Because Bumpy's involved in it." Bumpy's involved in it. It's clearly money involved in this cocaine.
Yeah.
The weird part is, Joe knew Bumpy was involved in it because he knew who Jose's partner was. And still, he didn't believe it until Stella told him there's money involved in it. Again, I don't know if it's possible to be pussy without getting some, but clearly Stella has Joe wrapped around her finger right now.
Yeah.
But next up, we get the violence we've been waiting for, and that is Chen meeting with Tommy to discuss what he wants the families to do. That he wants them to vote Joe out. He wants them to give him back his business, and he brings him to Tommy. "I know what you did. I know that you tried to kill my daughter." Tommy lets him know it started with his wife, and then Chen proceeds to cut off Tommy's fingers here. we understand the violence of Chen. Did you feel comforting that we got to see it so quick in this episode? Because they
Welcome.
wasted no time bringing back the old Chen.
Yeah, welcome back, Vincent D'Onofrio. We missed you. It just took, 9 episodes for you to join the season. But yeah, he's a fantastic actor. No reason to even go down that path. But yeah, bring back the savageness of Chen. And I love Chen and Joe are both characters that do the same thing just in different ways. This whole idea of like, oh, I'm gonna make you feel comfortable. I'm gonna give you a little massage on your shoulders, give you a little pat, give you a little pound, whatever you want. As a viewer, you are at the edge of your seat, like, yeah, it's only what he gonna do. You start checking out angles, and I love this shot because the shot they give him, they give him at a desk and his hands on up, so you see a lot of detail in his hands. You see his ring, and I was like, oh, I thought his hand was going to be gone because there was just a lot of that. I was like, he's not going to kill him because obviously, families and whatnot. But I said, he's definitely going to do something. So it was like, okay. And I saw the detailed hands and him cutting it. And when he cut his fingers, which in the way how they did it was just completely gross. I definitely had to hold my breath a little bit. But I was like, welcome back, Chen. Like, let's turn it up some more. I can't wait for next season's the finale. So
Yeah.
So, but it was dope.
It was an amazing setup to welcome back the audience to the violence of Chen. We have seen the other side of Chen up until this point, but we forget at times because it's been a while that Chen is extremely violent, as he brings up later on in this episode. But next up, again, Jose meeting with Wild Bill. I think we already talked about this, and him basically saying Italians don't know what they're doing. We must get Bumpy back in line. He brings up the case that Bumpy is holding over him.
Yeah.
And he basically
Operation
says
Mongoose.
Operation Mongoose, and he basically brings up that, we'll do what we need to do to bring Bumpy back in line. I'm gonna do a little foreshadowing
remind him
here.
Who's in control.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little foreshadowing here. Well, not foreshadowing, but I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Did you think when Wild Bill said that him kidnapping Elise and getting her hooked back on heroin again would be the actions of getting Bumpy back in line?
Hell no, but it was the most curveball of a moment. I just, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we just talk about it really quickly now, but shouldn't it have killed her?
No.
Thinking about
heroin.
Yeah, but
it's not gonna kill you. But boy, is it gonna put you somewhere that you don't need to be again. Because she's an addict.
Yeah, and it's the purest she's ever had. Of anything. It's the purest she's ever had, easily.
Oh, but they're gonna cut it properly. They're not gonna give her 100% of anything.
Yeah.
Heroin technically isn't 100% ever. So it's a smart move to do because again, he wasn't trying to kill her. He just needed to, and he said it. I need to send a message to Bumpy. No. And the message is I can get any of your people anytime. Yeah. And he chose it by making his daughter, that he was so proud that she had recovered, back into an addict again. But the duality of him doing this to Elise is equivalent to what Bumpy drove the painter to do, who painted the picture of Bumpy. Because that painter had been clean for years. And then what Bumpy did drove him to do drugs again. Here, Bumpy's business led to Elise being kidnapped. And for Wild Bill to fill her up with heroin again. It's again, as you said, I can't wait to this last episode. Because that's the scariest thing in the world, is that he's basically sent a message. I can get to your family at any point in time I need to.
It ain't looking good for Wanda, man. We got Lamar on the drugs. We got Elise on the drugs. Wanda got to watch out, man.
Hey, Wanda's our last hope, Joe. She's our last crack hope. That she holds out until she don't succumb to the sweet victim of crack again. But this is, again, it's an interesting move by Wild Bill to take this angle with it. that he would even do that is what makes it the most interesting thing. But let's jump back into our order, but we had to go forward there because that was the most important thing to me. And this is where we see Bumpy and Chen meet again.
Yeah.
And Chen brings up the idea of re-partnering with Bumpy, and Bumpy refuses. Guess why Bumpy refuses the deal?
Because Mamie told him to get out of the business here, but also the real reason
to protect Malcolm.
Because I literally thought I was going like, oh, he's listening to his wife. You know how much she's been stressing to him to like get out of the business, and she's proud of him because she thinks he's out of the business. And I was like, oh, he wouldn't get back in the business because she said not to, and he said no. I was like, great, he's listening to her. And then he said Malcolm. I was like, oh, never mind.
Look here, all I want in my life is to give me a woman that protects me and loves me as much as Bumpy loves Malcolm. That's all I want, Joe, because that's all you need in life is a woman who loves you as much as Bumpy loves and protects Malcolm. That's all you need in this world, Joe, because Bumpy will go to the ends of the earth at this point to protect Malcolm. Again, turning down this deal with Chen is clearly part of it. But next up, we have the funniest moment of the episode that I absolutely loved here. And the whole scene that plays out between these three, and that is
Omar,
Dale, Pettigrew, and Omar.
The boys driving down 295.
As they go on this road trip to see Clyde for Omar to get more information from him. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here to the initial road trip and the discussion of the things that Omar don't do. And Dale bringing up, wait a minute, you ain't never had a pork sandwich? From like it's the comic relief that's needed for this episode.
Agreed.
Because this episode is so heavy and so serious here. But then it goes from there to them arriving at Clyde's. We see Omar meet with Clyde, trying to pull it out of him that he's the one who attempted to kill Malcolm, and Clyde kind of picking up on Omar that's what he was doing. But then the next scene we get with them is Dale getting out the car and Pettigrew like, look, watch. As we see Dale hit him with a one-hitter quitter, and Pettigrew say, that's his talent. That's a skill that he does all the time. What did you just think about the scenes with these three in their pursuit to also help Bumpy protect Malcolm?
Yeah, definitely the funniest moment of this episode, and just understanding the vast difference of the personalities here. And I never thought that this would ever be a scene that I would want, but God, do I need a whole nother car ride between them. And I also would like to see Omar like mature to kind of become a little bit more savage like them, and hopefully some of them rub off on him. But like, yeah, it was definitely funny just to see them like, kind of pick at him a little bit. But like, it also was kind of interesting how kind of reserved he was, but like, he's ex-military and he has like a security background and weapons background. So like, he should be able to get to some extent down and dirty, but I don't know, maybe at least got him all buttered up. So, maybe that's why. But I think what Bumpy said was very important. Like, wow, this guy goes about things this way. I got trained killers that are about that life. Yeah. Different energies here. Like, maybe we can both do the same thing, but different energies here. I think it just had to be something like that. But like, I would love to see them kind of have another moment of just like picking at each other a little bit and seeing Omar like mature, not taking it no more.
Yeah, I mean, and just pointing at the differences between him being Muslim and them not being Muslim, and pointing at the differences was hilarious. Down to the way Omar looked when Dale snuck up on Clyde and hit him once and knocked him completely out. Like, Omar looked as he was fascinated that could even be a thing that can happen to a person right there. Again, it's awesome to see that. Next up, we have Stella Blanco as she meets with Joe to tell Joe Chen's plans to kill him and that Chen wants him out of Harlem. I don't know if it's anything you want to say, but just Stella being Stella. Are we just going to say Stella being Stella at this point? Yeah.
What else is new here? Like, these are definitely these sort of filler moments to make sure that there's no plot holes. But what else is new? Of course, Joe already knew this, but now I guess he's like, well, now he's home. So just in case you knew it, like, know that it's like soon. But obviously, this was just only to set up the idea of sparking the idea of like Joe trying to get ahead of it by having a meeting. So.
Yeah. Next up is Olympia meeting with Chen. This is something she's
That's
been
not
waiting for.
that is not what this scene is. Next
Well, it
up
is.
is Olympia getting sexy for Chen, and Chen
I didn't want to say. I didn't
completely
want to say. I
the,
didn't want to say getting ready for sexy time with Chen. I did. I
the,
just didn't want to say that. That's why I left it at meeting with Chen.
the lack of the lack of interest here is hilarious. Who knows what Chen was doing in jail, but he came home and he had nothing sexual for
Hey,
Olympiad at all,
hey,
besides
look here.
this death grip he gave her, this Darth Vader death grip he gave her.
I don't want to offend nobody by what I'm about to say, but I don't know how much pussy Chen had in jail that he just looked at Olympia and said, "I don't want none of you." Like, he was so mad. Even when she sat on his lap, she's talking about the lingerie that she done bought.
Got
And
it from Italy, made it,
yeah, like
specially sent. Jeez.
she's saying everything humanly possible to get him aroused. And all he could think about is, you attempted to kill Stella. That's all that matters to him here.
Yeah.
Which leads to the death grip that he gives her to end. And then the key part in Italians. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and also I thought it was interesting that like no one brings up the idea of what Olympia, the situationship, the entanglement that Tommy and Olympia had. No one brought that up. Was it because it was too detrimental?
I think so. I think that's why nobody fully brings that up. But I think that's why Tommy is very quick to side with Chen, no matter what. Because he knows if that part comes out, Chen is definitely going to kill him. Like, right now, it's better to Chen just thinks you tried to kill Stella. But if it goes any deeper than that, we don't know what's going to happen. But as Chen tells Olympia in the most Italian way humanly possible, you're dead to me. Which basically means you're out on your own. You better find a way to survive.
Yeah.
Because it won't be off of my name ever again in life.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about here? Besides, again,
nope.
I just wanted to call it a meeting. I was trying to not disrespect Olympia and bring up that Chen just had no interest in her, and me having questions about that. Because even if I'm in jail, I mean, you could try to kill my kid. I'm at least hit it first, and then I'll deal with you. Like, I'm not going to just turn you down. I've been in prison. Like, I have missed the touch of a woman or something of that nature. But Chen, like, nah, I had enough lady men in there. I'm good, but you gonna get this work today. But next up is the big sit down between.
Wait, really quickly before that, just to mention between the Stella and Joe situation. This is where they kiss. I mean, we talked about it, but like, if you didn't see this coming, it was so foreshadowing. And
the kiss,
yeah. And Stella's like, well, what is this? It's not control, it's just the complete opposite, and kisses each other. I was like, oh my God. Stella is 5 for 5 for any men she's around longer than a day to be in love with. End of story. All right, the meeting.
Not only that, hold up. Now you brought it up. Not only that, any men her father don't like. If her father has any problem with that man,
yeah, this is definitely daddy issues.
Teddy, Ernie, now Joe. It's any man
Franklin
that Chen has an issue with.
Lil Meech.
Tariq, like any man that Chen has a problem with, that's who Stella's gonna go with.
She could have had Braden, but nah,
Braden's too much. Chen probably like Braden.
Could have probably had Teddy. Nope.
Yeah. Nope.
Nope. But nah, all the wrong ones. Einstein.
Hey. She probably tried to get Zeke before it happened, and then it was just too late. She couldn't get to him in time. But next up is the meeting between Joe and Chen, where all the cards are laid on the table. All I'm gonna ask you is, this is something we were anticipating the moment Chen got out of prison, that eventually they would have to have this conversation. One, what you think about Joe going to Chen before the sit down, so them two could try to work things out? Because Joe here, in all honesty, Joe just wants to clear the air with Chen and basically say, hey, I didn't try to do anything that you think I did, but this is Chen, like, laying his foot down. And I brought up earlier here, when Chen lays down exactly why the families respect him and are scared of him, because they understand what he does to people.
Yeah.
What do you think about the performance of them two going back and forth with each other?
This is like when you pass a bill before it becomes a law. The two people here trying to agree on something before they have to go up to legislation to get this passed to be a law. But Chen being Chen is exactly what we needed to see. We needed to understand the hierarchy here, because if you didn't know no better, you said this was one boss to another boss. Chen does not see it that way. Chen, as he said earlier to Tommy, it's simple math. I put him in, I take him out. I'm sitting there like, you're absolutely right. Ain't no substitute teachers all of a sudden become your permanent. It don't happen that way. When that permanent come back, you up out of there, bro. Any interim championship, when that champion come back, he's still the champ. Yeah, you gotta have that fight to square it off, because you were probably gonna have a chance at it. But that don't mean that you just automatically the champ. It don't happen that way. And Chen made it very clear. Like, I'm going to make sure that you understand something that all of them get. Do not fuck with me. Period.
Yeah.
And while we seen Joe intimidate everybody this entire season, Joe got up and was like, okay, bye. I'll see you at the meeting. And I think it's a very adequate thing for Joe to handle it the way he did. Yeah. But if it had been anybody else, it would have been a head in the bag. It would have been a tussle of some sort. But also, Chen makes it very clear to everybody, which we'll talk about one quick second, but I have the biggest family. I have the biggest balls. I also have the biggest shipment now. I'm back, baby. Let it know. The champ is here. Yep. Chen not fucking around. And then for Chen to understand that while he is powerful and he does have his 2 feet to stand on, he then goes and says, I still could use Bumpy. Somebody who has it all still understands how much more he can have by then partnering with Bumpy. And then that's a wrap for everything about it. As he says, I'm going to make things happen now. So this meeting was important for the viewers to understand, if you're not like breaking it down like the way we are, and you're just watching it for entertainment purposes, which is perfectly fine. We do our job. Y'all do it. Y'all job. Understanding that Joe has been a force this entire season. He even looked strong against the family. He's even said that he's done things with a family that there's never been done. So you say, well, if you look at all the families, everybody was kind of sitting on their ass and Joe's making move. And everybody is like, we're so good to have Joe around. Chen says, cool, but I'm back. That's my seat. And we're going to go back to doing the things I do. And by the way, I have the biggest shipment coming in. I have control of it. What's good? So I liked it. I enjoyed it.
And also for the audience to keep in mind, the reason that Joe came across as the family fearing him the most before this episode, it's because technically he had Chen's soldiers behind him, because Chen put him in place. So technically, like, the family that he had behind him is Chen's family. So if Chen comes out, everything reverts back to me.
It's like, how it should be.
You back to being Memphis Bleak. Like, yeah, the rock behind you when you out, because Jay ain't out. But when Jay come back, as Jay said in his song, get the fuck off the throne, the king's back. Like, that's what Chen is telling Joe. Like, hey, I'm back here. But also brought up here is Joe bringing up a possible deal that can be sweet for everybody.
Yeah.
And you see Chen completely blow it off. Like,
no,
I don't care. Like, you either leave Harlem or I'll kill you at this point. That's, again, something that we'll talk about in the final scene, because it's highly important that this is still brought up and Chen could care less about it.
And I don't think it was arrogant. I think he realized that there could have been a means of desperation, and that by everything that Joe has done to you, it's definitely been sort of just belittling and untrustful for what he was supposed to do. It's like, if go ahead.
Here's the weird part, because you said something most interesting. You said out of everything Joe has done to him, technically Joe has done nothing to Chen. This is all Stella's fault. Yeah, like, that's the only reason that Chen is mad, because Joe didn't even make a move to take over for Chen until Chen attempted to have him killed because of a lie that Stella told. So if Stella never tells that lie to get to Paris, we never have this issue between Chen and Joe.
I mean, I can see that, but also at the same time, I can see Joe not ever just taking the back seat the entire time. Joe made it very clear in the beginning that, like, his job was to protect his daughter. Sure, he probably wouldn't have wavered on that, but he had no aspirations on taking. the deals in the moves he was trying to make with Bumpy, with the French connection, does not. He was trying to overthrow the family. So you think he's gonna overthrow the family, but then take backseat to Chen? Yeah, it's not happening.
He was trying to overthrow the family, but those are the same deals that Chen was trying to make to overthrow the family.
Well,
it's literally the same. It's literally the same thing.
Bro, take my shoes off.
I think he always understood he didn't have the manpower to do that to Chen. Chen has way too much manpower.
Yeah.
Everybody always knows that. Again, I blame Stella for everything. Because without Stella, these two gentlemen would have no issue if it wasn't for the Empress of Harlem. But next up, and we already talked about it, and this is when Elise gets kidnapped by Wild Bill. I'm way more interested than in the point that this is why he said he could get other people to kill Malcolm. He didn't send other agents out there to kidnap Elise.
He sent some regular black dudes.
He sent black people to do it.
I was like, who the hell are them dudes?
Hey, I'm asking this question. I thought they were possibly Muslims from another mosque trying to do that. Okay, I'm making sure I wouldn't lose my mind. I clearly thought that. But the following scene, because there's not much, we already talked about that scene, but the following scene is Malcolm, again, needing Elise, him wondering about, tell him reach out to everybody to find out where she is here, when we kind of already know everything that's going on with Elise. The next scene, again, is Mamie and Bumpy talking about Chen wanting to make a deal, talking about the CIA, and basically Bumpy telling her, like, there's literally no way out of this. I can't get out of this deal. This is Bumpy fully understanding the threat that the CIA is, with not fully understanding that he's already put himself in a corner where they've already followed through with the threat that they are. What'd you think about, as you said it, when you said finally, what'd you think about Bumpy finally coming to the conclusion that I'm in business with people that, as Jose warned him in the beginning, you need to be very careful how you deal with them.
Yeah, it's funny because, the answer to Bumpy is finally. But it's also funny what you just said, that Jose giving all these warnings to only have to look himself in the mirror this episode.
Exactly.
It's like,
yes.
Yeah, sir, you practice what you preach.
Exactly. But next up, and I'm just going to let you go ahead and talk about it, and that is the meeting with the families. What did you think about the offer that Joe brought the families after Chen gave them a demand that this is what's going to happen? As you pointed out earlier, Chen clearly telling them, I have more soldiers, I have more everything. Basically telling them, I could take all of you out if I chose to, but I just want Joe gone. What'd you think about the threat that Chen laid out to the families to Joe? But also here we get the plan that Joe lays out, that he has been brought to by Jose, who happens to be at the family meeting here, which makes no sense because they don't like other people at all at their meetings.
Yeah, this is simple. Joe, I mean, everything Chen's saying, fine. No, nothing, no discrepancy in that. Joe bringing Wild Bill in and bringing the CIA in is exactly the statement that we just made a second ago about Bumpy and Jose. Do you all think? And this is, if I'm not mistaken, this has to be sort of the demise of Joe Colombo in thinking. But anyway, because I actually forgot what happened with Joe. Now I'm thinking about it, but whatever.
This is when he offered to do it, when he brings up.
No. I mean, what ultimately happened with Joe and how?
Oh, in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're not gonna talk about that. That's too soon. But yeah.
But understand that, we talked about the CIA's involvement in Operation. What did you do? Do y'all remember Operation Mongoose is still a thing?
Yes.
This ain't got shit. The cocaine is like when you go to the. Listen. Anybody who do not have insurance, I have insurance. I know you have insurance, but anybody who don't have insurance, when you go to any bit of doctor's visit, dental, you have a family, whatever it is, you get this nice fat bill at the end of that thing. Fat bill. That thing says whatever. People have insurance, you don't see it, you pay your copay, but you still see a nice bill that goes to your insurance. And with all that, when you're a kid, whether it's the pain, your parents having to pay, a lot of different things happen why people don't like to go to the doctor. But at the end of it, you get a lollipop. And that lollipop is like the happiest thing because the lollipop costs them, let's just say, 0.04 of everything that you paid for in that visit. So they can give you 20 of those and it would never add up to what your bill.
Never be a problem.
The point I'm making here is that this is the CIA saying y'all can have all the cocaine y'all want because we give zero fucks about that. I need y'all to go do a job for me. And I know this is going to be him proposing to get Malcolm X killed. That's their only focus right now. This cocaine and the money, and why Jose is building it up to be a big thing and how it can.
Yeah.
It's beneficial to him because we know that the war on drugs and guns is what keeps all the money rolling and whatnot. Fine. But there's a bigger issue right now, and it's Malcolm X. Him coming to the table and saying, we'll give you cocaine at a good price, do y'all thing. Who gives a fuck? I already know y'all can't sell it. So and he already said he knows they can't sell it. So he doesn't even give a fuck. This is charity to them. And as they said, what we do best is the deal kill. That's it.
Yes.
That's the only deal. And who could
it's amazing when I get stuff for free and I can give it to people and make you think you get a deal for it. It literally costs me nothing. It's not a deal at this point. It costs me absolutely nothing. But you think it costs me everything.
Yeah, I can exactly. Yeah, so as a kid, you get this lollipop that just changes your life. Your parents or us, we're in the hole.
You can't don't just bring up a lollipop though. You got to bring up a sticker. You know, when you get the nice little sticker on your arm too, like you thought this was the best shit in the world. You get a lollipop and a sticker. I used to love them fucking lollipops from the doctor.
Yeah.
Not understanding the thousands of dollars that was paid for me to get that lollipop. I could have had thousands of lollipops with that money.
And them motherfuckers had the nerve to be out of them some days too. What you mean you don't have no stickers? What y'all talking about?
That's what I'm about to say. But bitch, you should have a mountain of lollipops in here.
Costco's galore. Y'all should be going crazy right now.
But again, and it's interesting to see here of the CIA making this deal with them to bring them cocaine. And we understand we're in 1965. This deal was brought to Frank Lucas in the 70s. This deal was bought the Freeway in the 80s. This deal was bought with Contra and everything else in the 90s. Tom Cruise played a movie where a guy flew cocaine over for the United States. If you think they care at all about that drug, they don't. It's so free. It's something they can always get their hands on here. And that's what makes it interesting that the Italians here, without fully doing a background check, is doing business with the CIA.
Yeah.
And Jose here, amazingly, did not warn Joe like he warned Bumpy what happens if you get in business with them. Yeah. All they see is the CIA can protect us from being arrested, which is an absolute lie. Because if the FBI is involved, the CIA can't protect you from nothing. And they will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. Because that's what the CIA does. They would throw Wild Bill under the bus if possible.
Absolutely.
They could care less about
it. He'll be a contractor before he knew it.
Exactly. But let's get to the end of the episode, because this is a very interesting correlation that they do here. Is Malcolm giving this extremely powerful speech about his mortality, letting him understand exactly like would he just survive. At the same time, we get some big reveals here. One is Bumpy, as he's interrogating Clyde. And I know I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but when he's interrogating Clyde, Clyde informs him that he only attempted to kill Malcolm because of Wild Bill, which is something that blows you away. And then the next thing is when Bumpy finds Elise on the side of the street and see that she's been drugged. And also this time we see the reveal that Chen goes to get Stella, and Stella, in front of Chen, in front of everyone, chooses to stay with Joe. What do you think about all of these reveals that we get during this very powerful speech by Malcolm?
I tell you what I think. I think your narration and your articulation of these scenes are terrible. Stella, Stella, you repeat your statement about Stella real quick. Just
wow yourself. At the meeting, decided to stay with Joe.
Yeah.
She did decide to stay with Joe. She did. They partnered with Joe. She moved over. She said,
You said
Chad,
it. You said
I'm
it
staying
like it
with
was
him.
you said it like it was a surprise. It is Stella.
Oh no,
Oh,
I did not say it like it was. I said it like it's a foregone conclusion. I did
okay.
not say it like it was a surprise.
Of
I said it like it
course.
was a foregone conclusion. Who the hell didn't think she was going to stay with Joe?
Yeah.
She
No,
told Chen in the beginning of the episode she was
yeah.
staying
When
with Joe.
somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Listen, her being with Joe, no surprise. Bumpy and Chen coming back together. And I love the duality
That's what
of
I'm about to
this
say.
because
That was the
we've
last scene.
seen
Yep.
them in the light in the meeting, and then we see them in the dark in the meeting. And they're kind of like, we're going to do is two evil forces coming back together. We've seen like this sort of this positive meeting the opportunity to the two, like, nah, everything turned against us. Let's take back Harlem. I loved it. It was a dope ending for that. But also to Clyde's point, it also then reinforces the idea that did he actually send two Muslims to kidnap Elise? You thought it, you said it, I thought it, and I'm like, do you think he actually did do that? Now that we know he might got them in the bag here.
Does everybody understand? I saw this as a bigger thing when Clyde brings up the point that Wild Bill told him to go kill Malcolm. Does everybody understand this is almost setting up possibly the actual murder of Malcolm X? Because we understand there were black people involved, Muslims from other mosques involved in Malcolm's murder, but it wasn't the ones they attempted to pin everything on. Those gentlemen are now free. Thank God they got freed this year. But that it's been talked about that the CIA put these other Muslims up to kill Malcolm. Here is just the beginning trend of it, of Wild Bill getting Muslims to do his dirty work against Malcolm.
Yeah,
I think they're laying the foundation for what we kind of know was about to come with Malcolm, and they learned that the CIA can reach anybody to get anything done they need to have done here, and just by showing that Clyde had already had an idea that he wanted Malcolm gone.
Yeah,
but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told them, as he repeatedly brings up, you are not to touch Malcolm under any circumstances. But here we see him doing it, but he's doing it at the behest of the CIA. I think it's a very interesting thing, and I think they're doing a great job on the show to possibly bring up the separation of what people have been told this entire time versus what may be closer to reality. People have always said, oh, the nation wanted Malcolm dead. But then if you go about it, the leader of the nation told everybody, under no circumstances are you to touch Malcolm. Because they fully understand if we kill him, he becomes a martyr.
Yeah.
It's something we can't control. Not only that, what's the point in killing him?
It's
we
also
excommunicated him.
It's also important what Omar was saying too, in terms of like, should I be reading between the lines here, or do I take it literal? And I think that interpretation is why it's why the conflict of like who really did this type of thing, because you can say, oh, a Muslim did it, or was it a CIA person, or was it just a ploy? It's a lot of different things it could be, but I think like that's why the confusion in terms of like who actually went through in terms of satisfying this hit, who objectively did this, was a collaboration and whatnot. But I think this episode definitely detailed that as much that who knows who ultimately
lays the appropriate amount of groundwork. And we from the DMV area, where we have amazingly the best historian in the world, who was on his Netflix special, and he lives in Virginia, of doing the research on who killed Malcolm X, and he led to the two gentlemen who they tried to say killed Malcolm X being freed and getting millions upon millions of dollars from the federal government for being put in jail for killing Malcolm X when everybody knew they had nothing to do with it. So again, this is just a setup for it all, people. So hopefully we get to see it. But again, final thoughts on this episode, and this one is entitled "We Are All Kings."
Nah, that's it, man. Let's just get to the finale next week.
And I just want to bring up one thing. This is a brilliant title for this episode. If anybody remembers, it is a documentary with Muhammad Ali. And the name of it is "We Are All Kings." And it actually deals a partial with his relationship with being Muslim and his relationship with Malcolm X. To name this episode "We Are All Kings," if that was not meant to be that way, that's the first thing I thought of. And then I understood exactly the angle that the episode was going to go into here. And this is what I thought people would love. But check it out, review it, let us know what you think. And here's the key parts here. Do you think we are going close to seeing the end of Malcolm X? Do you think this partnership with Bumpy and Chen is going to be fruitful that allows them to fight against the families? Do we think that Stella is about to take over Joe's empire and completely run Harlem?
The families. Stella. This, you talk bad about Stella, that's what happened. Well, on that note, because it seems like you may have something you need to clean up out in this.
Look here. I don't even drink anymore. This is sparkling water. I'm really upset about my little bit of sparkling water that's in my glass. But again, thank y'all for checking out our recap review. We have so much other content. Check it out. We don't have time to name it. You all, at this point, you all fully know it. We greatly appreciate the support y'all giving us all our other content. Check it out. We can't wait to be back with you all with Godfather of Harlem, episode 10, the season finale next week. Peace, people.